Kiwis is actually reasonably close with regards to where he is on the starting box. You might see what's called a pushing move coming up here by Peter Burling. He's going to come in from behind and try to force Frank Kiwis. Here he is with an overlap to Leeward. Frank Kiwis is very vulnerable right now. There he goes head to win, forcing Kiwis to tack, to stay away and not foul him. Not a perfect setup. 24 seconds to go. Kiwis is in kind of a tough spot. The only Burling can't pull the trigger too early here. That's one way that he could actually mess this start up. 15 seconds to go. There's literally no place to go for Frank at this stage.
Well, he is bearing down as they head for the start line. Gentle adjustment from the Kiwis as they head across the start and get up onto the foils. French seemingly being edged out pretty early on.
I think the whole strategy there was the fact that Groupama had a chance to dictate when they wanted to come back to the line. They came back so early, it allowed the Kiwis to easily come in from behind, what's called hook them, and take complete control of the starting box.
So really a tactical masterclass from Pistol Peter Burling, the 26-year-old Kiwi, as they hurtle across the water and round mark one, heading downwind, and with what already looks like a very, very tough lead for the French to overhaul. So often we've seen in these races, certainly through the course of the World Series, Ken, if you get that early lead at the mark, you can dictate the play, can't you? And then it is perhaps incumbent upon you to lose it effectively. You have to make the error.
That's correct. You have to make the error, especially when you're sailing against such unbelievably strong programs out here. You gotta hope the person in front makes a big error. And right now, if you're Groupama, you're hoping. If you're a Groupama fan, you're hoping for somewhat of a miracle right now, because that start didn't go exactly the way you were hoping it would.
Just as we saw in race one from the French, that instability, that lack of control perhaps when they are up on the foils, moving at some speed. Not that it's easy, far from it, but it seems those in greater control will be able to dictate the terms of these races.
So Joey, looking out on the race course right now and looking at the Kiwis, do we think they have their light or their heavy air foils in today? Any idea?
They look a little bit smaller, so that'd be my best guess. They did have a bit of a moment out of their first jibe and lost control, but they've got Groupama pretty firmly under control now.
I think he said, we missed the very beginning of that, but I think he believes it's their heavy air foils. They have big light air foils, and I would tend to agree with them. We're going to become more accustomed to the little nuances of how these boats, the features on all these boats as we go along here, and we're learning just as much as everybody else at home. You look at the angle away from the mark, the red dotted lines back there, and how much higher, pointing towards the wind, the Kiwis were than the French. They look stable though, don't they? They look solid. We haven't even talked about the bicyclists yet. Just a sight that sailors around the world are going to have to get used to.
So there they are, the cyclists. And they are working hard.
The thought is those leg muscles are stronger than those arm muscles right there, and that's their theory. They're pumping. With the amount of muscle, they're actually powering up their hydraulic systems more effectively, more efficiently than if they were using their arms. That's the whole theory around it.
Does it detract from their maneuverability, their ability to whip across the platform and make sure they're in the right place, the right time, the weight balance is right for all the maneuvers?
Well, certainly the other teams thought so. If you believe what you read, which, mark my words, you may not. If you believe what you read, these guys have been working on this for a long time. Everybody else, supposedly, they claim they looked at it and didn't think they thought it was going to be bad for maneuvers, but I'll tell you what, in all the practice sessions I've seen so far, these guys' maneuvers look pretty darn slick.
So another
they also talk about, sorry, Ali, they talk about the windage being worse on these guys, but I think the windage could potentially be better. Two guys across. They'll control the dagger boards. Perfect foiling tack. Incredibly stable.
Well, I guess just another example, the choice of the cycles, another example of the Kiwis doing things their own way. They don't like to follow the trend, and it is paying off for them at the moment. They look like they have things under control right now. And,
relaxed.
Peter Burling at the back just looks like he's out for a picnic. He's,
I don't think he feels that way, but
just quietly controlling things, isn't he? And of course, you mentioned every time he's in a boat, he is a serial winner, the golden boy, really, of New Zealand sailing.
Just left turn, one on left.
Growing this lead at the moment, metre by metre. Speed comfortably quicker.
Big header here coming.
500 metres separating the two crews.
and there's boat speed as well. You asked a good question before. Can you just simply look at boat speeds on the race course? And every time we've shown boat speeds, we've seen a couple knots. And it's not like the days when I sailed America's Cups, Ali, a couple tenths of a knot was a huge gain or a huge loss. Here it's a couple knots are big gains and losses. And day to day, as we saw in 2013 in San Francisco, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 knots faster just on a given day with a couple little changes. It's a whole new game.
So let's bring in Joey Newton as we see the New Zealanders rounding the third gate and looking in total command. Is there anything, Joey, from your perspective that you would like to see the French doing to turn things around here?
Oh, Ali, they've got a little bit of work to do. I think their boat speed actually looks pretty good, but their manoeuvres are letting them down. So every tack, every jibe, they're just losing tens of metres, and they really need to correct that to be competitive.
And how quickly is that something you can change? I mean, they don't have the time, really, do they? Given the way these races come thick and fast, they just don't have any more time to get that in place, do they? Can they turn it around in time?
I'd like to think if someone can, and to be frank, I've done a lot of sailing with Frank, and actually was part of the winning team in 2010, so I think they could do it. It's a tough road from where they are now, but I'd sure like them to see it turn around a little bit.
So really, Ken, I mean, we talk about the design race, the technological race. The French seem to have everything in order in that regard. It is simply the boat handling.
Yeah, but that could be the tech. It's all together. It's all bunched together. You know, you can't just say it's one thing or another. I think it's a little bit of everything. We were talking to Russell Coots about the total package the other day, and he was explaining to us, it's really hard to isolate one thing. It's all one big ball, and if you don't get it all working, all those components working at the same time, it's really not going to happen for you.
25.
So it's going to be tough for them mentally as well as physically now, isn't it? After
I'll be happy with it.
3 races of the day, the French will know that a fifth of their challenge is done. The schedule perhaps not working in their favour either, but the Kiwis really driving home the advantage now.
As we learned in the last race, that Japan against Sweden, don't let your foot off the gas pedal. There's no doubt about that. We thought that race was all but done, and man, did that turn around quick.
Yeah, numbers are good. Yeah, happy to go. Yeah, keep going. Keep going just a little faster. 4 to go. 3, 2.
We're talking about a jibe, trying to pull off a jibe here and when to jibe. I'm sure they have instruments that are telling them exactly where the ley line or the closest line, the most efficient line towards the mark is for the boat to sail. You know, this is the automation of these boats, and I'm sure as we start to loosen these guys up a little bit and get into their boats and their systems, it'll be fun to have a little bit of a tour around and see how these things really work.
So a little bit of a dousing for the cyclists. They'll probably be glad of that as they pound away, powering that boat up and round gate 4. Upwind one more time.
Really pretty elegant. If there's such a thing as elegance in these boats, in these violent kind of, I think that's the right word, violent boats. Watching them just in perfect balance. And be careful here if you're Emirates Team New Zealand. All of a sudden, you don't want to get pinned up against this boundary and foul Groupama, but they jive away and make it a little easier for them. So watching these boats fly, it looks so smooth and graceful, but I tell you, when you're on board the boat, it is some kind of violent. Just shaking the G-forces on board the boat. All these teams have had people flying off the sides during maneuvers. It can get a little dicey at times, I can tell you that.
Yes, Frank Kiwis himself had a nasty accident, didn't he? A little while back, lost his footing and fell in the water, flew off at 35 knots, hit the rudder, nasty injury to his foot. To work very hard to recover from that, to take his place at the helm. Interesting to hear him talking ahead of the event here in Bermuda about the fact that the great strength of his crew, he believed, was the fact that they, in a way, were able to approach the whole project with a blank sheet of paper. They could innovate, they could think outside the box. They're not necessarily steeped in America's Cup tradition in the same way that so many of the other crews are. He saw that as a massive positive, a plus point.
At the same time, I wonder, it has to be the right mix. I wonder if he would take a little more veteran leadership at this stage.
So the Kiwis powering forwards, beating challengers in 2013. And a huge culture of sailing back home on the North and South Island, and enormous amount of interest generated there over the outcome of this event here in Bermuda.
Incredible foils on these boats. The development that's gone on there. You know, we're talking about the pedaling, the pedal power, the cyclists, and it's really the whole different style, the different type of crew member. I can't think of the last time. We'll have to do a little homework on this. It might be 2007, the last time Ray Davies wasn't on board a Louis Vuitton or America's Cup race for a Team New Zealand. We're going to have to look into that. But it's just amazing how well, Joey Newton. I mean, Joey Newton is with us today because Joey, tell us. I mean, it's aerobics, it's power, it's all of a sudden the jib trimmer, the nuances of jib trimming. You were telling me you ease or trim the soft sail up front maybe an inch.
Yeah, that's right. And the boats have evolved and they're getting faster and faster and faster, and they make bigger demands on the horsepower you can put into them. So, you know, in my case, I'm simply too small to sail these boats. And the guys that we have turning the handles are top level, Olympic level athletes. And across the board, the teams have gone to people like that to power them. They're that hard to sail.
Give us a flavour, Joey, if you can, about the difference in the training techniques and the work that everybody has to do behind the scenes in the gym, no doubt early mornings, late nights, you know, how that's changed over the course of the last few years in particular.
Well, it's sort of, the America's Cup has changed from last campaign. We had very traditional America's Cup campaigns where you'd sort of go to the gym in the morning once, spend long hours with the boat, do a big sailing day and then go home. And that's been forced to evolve into a more professional athlete sort of training regime, or Olympic regime, if you will. So it's much more about you train, you eat, you rest, you sail, you rest, you train. And that's pretty much us every single day. I'd say all of these teams are training at least twice a day on top of their sailing, and in between that is eating and resting. And the more traditional sort of boat work side of things has gone by the way.
There you have it. Okay, we're done now. You know, it's.
Well, they are some remarkable athletes, aren't they?
And if, by the way, if you see Joey standing on the street corner,
Yeah,
you say, there's the fittest dude you've seen in a long time, you know? I'm not trying to blow smoke, Joey, but it's not like you're exactly chopped liver.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
Pressure here, fading in about
the
5.
game is changing on a number of different ways, and of course all those grinders have to have a keen sailing instinct too. They have to know exactly what their role is and how it is in tune with everybody else on the boat. And the communication systems are key as well, aren't they, Ken? How the helmsman communicates his messages to the rest of his team.
That's exactly right. The communication systems have become fantastic. I mean, back in my day, you'd be yelling to the bowman and yelling to the guy in the pit, you know, and now it's conversational tone. It keeps the whole level of anxiety on board the boat at a completely different level. So the communication systems have become quite good and have certainly helped these guys sail the boat at a much more effective rate.
Yep.
It looks so smooth, Ellie, when we're looking at these side views, and then you look at the other views, and it is, I think, violent. I think violent's the right word for it. It's incredible.
Smooth simultaneously, and the Kiwis epitomizing that right now. Stretching ahead and heading for the finish line in very good nick. Looking to make sure that their challenge is a lasting one here at the America's Cup in Bermuda. Peter Burling, calm head. Youngest sailor at the 2008 Olympics and earmarked for greatness from a very, very young age. But a natural, instinctive, unflappable sailor, and a great team alongside him. They're looking the real deal, Ken.
They are definitely looking the real deal. They're thought to be certainly a favorite. Once they finally did show up in Bermuda and started training with the group, they immediately were on pace. They did a lot of training by themselves in Auckland, back in New Zealand. I think part of it was probably financial, saving a few bucks, but part of it was maybe keeping some of this stuff to themselves a little more effectively and not in the peering eyes of all the other teams around here in Bermuda. I'm sure most teams had some prying eyes on them in Auckland, but nonetheless, they showed up here fast and smooth and obviously looking pretty solid against the French at this stage. It was 38-39. Knots amongst friends, zipping across the Great Sound, heading right at our glass booth.
Well, able to enjoy this final run, the Kiwis. A big statement made by Peter Burling and his team, leading his crew over the finishing line, miles in front of the French, and laying down the gauntlet. That's what we've got, he's saying. What else does everybody else have? Terrific stuff from Emirates Team New Zealand. And the French left trailing in their wake.
But as we talked about in the race that USA was up against the French, I guarantee you that the Kiwi, all the Kiwi higher brass, all the Kiwi coaches will have all kinds of stuff to critique in that race and how they sailed the boat around the race course and constantly trying to get more speed. You look at a dominant performance like this and you think to yourself, what else could they possibly do? Well, listen, there's a long way to go here, folks, and everybody's getting faster by the day. Everybody's trying new systems every day, and there's no way these guys are going to stop trying to innovate.
So a leadership challenge amongst other things for Frank Camas, who knows that they've got to turn this around pretty quick if they're to be part of the playoffs. One team, of course, go home at the end of the qualifiers. And the defenders, Oracle Team USA, goes straight through to the match. Challenger playoffs split into two sections, and Frank Kiwis will be desperate to be part of that equation.
It's a big number here, though. This is going to be well over 2 minutes around essentially a 20-minute race course. It's a big number. There's a tall hill to climb here for the French team. There's no doubt about that. And at this latest stage, how many rabbits can you pull out of a hat at one time? I don't know how many other silly comments I could make here on it, but it's not going to be easy for these guys, I can tell you that. Not for lack of effort. That is for sure.
No doubt about that, but really a question of belief for the French at this point, amongst other things. They need to try to ensure that they still believe that anything is possible as they cross the finish line and plunge into the water.
It's very clear there's only one way to stop the boat. Everybody's doing the same thing.
So, victory for Emirates Team New Zealand.